Hey guys, welcome back to this week's Journal With Me video. These videos are when I take you along for the journey of filling out a page in my journal. And it's been so wet and so rainy here, you can probably hear that in the background today. But it's been perfect weather for crafting. So the ephemera that I have to put into my journal today is I have this piece of fabric that I've had kind of been hoarding it because it's my last piece of my favorite fabric. I have a drawing from my 5-year-old son. I have a little envelope and a card from a little friend who's my son's age, and then a pressed flower. And I'm just starting in the next page in my journal that's blank. And we're going to kick this off straight away with a tip, which is just to, before you start, if you don't really know what you want to do, get all the pieces that you want to put in your journal and just play with them. Just place them on the page, move them around, and just try out different positions and different layouts so you can start to get a rough idea of how things will look. And I kind of like to do that before I start planning. So usually I'll start to get like a rough plan in mind of where I want some certain things to go. Other things will kind of fall into place later, but I find that really helpful to give me a few pieces that I know I like the look of where they go. So I can choose a few things I definitely want to do, and then everything else kind of falls into place later. So I think that's a really, really helpful tip. I have this picked flashcard. It's just a like craft supply. It's not a real piece of ephemera technically, but I liked it because it would go with the flower, the pressed flower that I have. And this fabric piece that I have, I'm just including it because I really love the print and the colors. It's one of my favorite fabrics. I've used it up in a couple of different craft projects, and this is like my last piece of it. So I wanted to just cut out a piece and stick it into my journal just so that I can keep it like for a record, and so that I can always come back and look at it later. Just because I find that particular pattern and that particular floral really inspiring and just makes me happy to look at it. So I'm taking some wet PVA glue. This is some acid-free PVA glue that I'm using. I'm just brushing that over the page and then gluing the fabric down. And it kind of sits inside the frame that's already on the page there, so it just kind of frames the piece, and I like the way that that looks in the end. And I'm putting just enough to stick it down. I'm not putting a heap that it seeps through the fabric though, like it's not wet and sticky, but I have covered the entire area, and when that dries it will be stuck down really well. The next tip I have to share today is to use ephemera from different events. So sometimes when you're journaling, you might have a heap of things from one particular day or one particular thing that you did. But usually for me, I have things from several different days or even weeks, sometimes even months or even years. So things that are from totally different events, totally different time frames. And I mash them all together into one layout, and I find that that's a really fun, easy way to make sure everything gets into your journal, because sometimes you just have random things that don't really have a place. So you can definitely mix them up together. A good example of that is this wrapping paper that I'm gluing on the back of the page there on the right. So this is actually some wrapping paper left over from a gift from my sister, and so it's such pretty paper, I've just kept it. I have glued some of it before into other journals previously, so I'm not technically including that today as an ephemera piece because I've recorded that before, but I can still utilize that and other things as well. So this card that I have from Alana, I am going to include as well, even though it's from a couple of weeks ago. And you can easily take any envelope and glue the flap of that envelope over the edge of a page, and it can go on the top or on the sides or along the bottom, and you just glue that over, and that instantly creates a really easy little flap or like a fold out on the page. I really love doing that. That's one of my favorite quick things to do to add some interaction to a page. Now moving on to the next page, and that rain is getting a little bit louder now, so hopefully you can still hear me all right. But I'm taking that drawing from my son, and I am going to cut that down a little bit so that it will fit on this shorter page. So I just tore that down with a ruler, and because it cut off his name that he'd written along the top, I also cut that out separately because I didn't want to lose that little piece. I think the way that he writes his name right now is really cute, so I definitely wanted to document that. I'm just taking my glue stick and gluing that drawing down directly along the bottom of the page there. And because it kind of overhung off the page a little bit, I tried to fold that extra bit over, but I didn't realize how much of the drawing I was losing when I did that. So when I flipped the page back over to have a look, I decided to open that back out again because I didn't want to lose the face of that little kitty cat. So because that had some glue residue on the back of that little piece that's overhanging, I just put a little strip of washi tape over that just to stop it from getting stuck to anything I don't want it to stick to. And then with the little name piece that's separate, I'm just going to glue that along the top there. And that way I've only lost a little bit of blank white paper in between. I've still got all of that important stuff documented on the page. And now I'm taking that peaked flashcard that I was talking about before, and I'm going to glue that halfway along this narrow page. And what that's going to do is just lengthen the page. So sometimes I like using a narrow page and I've got lots of them bound into my book, but other times it's just not quite enough space, or I just want a little bit more space for whatever I'm documenting. And you can easily do that just by gluing an extra piece of paper onto the narrow page you have, and that will just lengthen it and make the page as big as you need it to be. What I'm going to do is take that pressed flower and I'm just going to tape it directly down on top, and that's going to kind of sit half on top of the flashcard and half on top of the actual page in the journal. And as you guys saw there on the back of that, I just added a little strip of tape to help stick those two pieces together, just to make sure that that extended page is stuck on really, really well and it's not going to come loose. Just added a couple of staples to that as well, so just to again make sure that's really reinforced. And now I'm just flicking through and seeing if there's anything else I want to add. I put out these red framed labels, which I'll link below. These are a freebie. I print them on sticker paper and I just love the vintage feel that they add to a page. I've been using these for a couple of years now, and I really like that they kind of invite you to journal, but not too much. They invite you to just annotate something or just do a very, very small amount of writing, which is perfect if you're a little bit intimidated about the writing part of journaling. And here is a look at the finished pages. I really like how these ones turned out. There's lots of pretty patterns and colors to look at, so it was a really fun one to put together. I hope you guys enjoyed this journal with me video today. I share a journaling process video once a week, so if you do enjoy them, make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I hope you're all staying dry and safe in this crazy wet weather here in Australia at the moment. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.